I think another one is call centers. Right? If you've got any sort of business where you're fielding calls from your external customers or even internal customers for that matter, you've got systems of record that the call center agents are using to answer customer queries, right? Whether those are account information like in a CRM or policies or documents or things like that that they may need to reference to get that information. And I'm sure you've seen in your own personal life when you're interacting with companies these days, you go to the website and you're immediately prompted with a "How can I help you?" Right? And now your first interaction is an AI bot that's tied into various systems in the back end, where Agentic comes in, and you probably don't even realize it, or at least you know less techie people probably don't realize it, is those systems are all connected in the back end.
Welcome, everybody, to Wire Garage with Pops. And today's episode explores how artificial intelligence is transforming our work and our lives, from automating routine tasks, unlocking new business workflows, offering expert insights, or just getting started in maximizing AI's valuable responsibly. So AI isn't just for tech giants anymore. Simple integrations now automate busy work, generate text, summarize meetings, help prioritize tasks. Thoughtful implementation, meaning aligning tools, business goals, starting the pilot project, things like that. And I think some of the key tips include keeping just humans in a loop for quality control. Sometimes it's investing in training or skill building, and starting with targeted, measurable cases. Deal? What do you think?
I think to kind of start and break the ice here, Toby, pleasure to meet you. Thank you for being with us here today. As I
My pleasure.
understand it, you're a little bit of a fan of technology, and there's this really cool thing called AI that has just kind of recently just sort of gotten into the mainstream here and has taken the spotlight. And I was wondering if you could give us some insight into the kinds of things that have been most interesting to you, either in that space or maybe related to that space.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. And thank you for having me. So, yeah, it's definitely the hot topic, certainly of the last couple of years. And from my perspective, working for a tech company and supporting customers in a technical sales capability every day, this is something that they want to talk about, right? And it's a part of it needs to be made a part of every conversation. And if the customer isn't bringing it up to us, we're definitely putting it forward with them, right? Because it has, as I'm sure you're well aware, the potential to really change everything with the way these companies are doing business, whether or not you're, a state and local government entity or a healthcare payer or provider or, somebody in finance or industry or retail, right? They're all thinking about ways that they can leverage this technology to their own benefit. So it's front and center. And even if it isn't an AI conversation per se, eventually it's going to come up, whether you're talking about, automation or data or governance or security. AI is getting woven into all those conversations because it's becoming part of something customers are thinking about and wanting to implement, get the best use out of. So yeah, it's all day, every day AI in my world.
If I imagine that companies are kind of on that bell curve of still kind of early, some folks are experimenting, some folks kind of got it. Then there's others that are ahead of the curve. For the folks that might not be familiar or just starting to get into it to experiment, are there any tools or are there any, like, how could they find out more information? Is there something they should experiment with? And then maybe maybe that's a personal perspective. And then from a business perspective, what's kind of maybe some early value drivers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, a lot of times the first inclination is to look at it from a product or a solution standpoint. And, either because you've heard about this, that, or the other, Copilot, Gemini, ChatGPT, what have you, either on your own research or somebody told you, hey, you got to go check this thing out, right? But I think where we've seen people be more successful from the customer standpoint is thinking about it from a business challenge perspective. What problem are you trying to solve? What are you looking to get out of it from a business value perspective, as opposed to, oh well, vendor X, Y, or Z wants to sell me, some code generation tool, right? Now I could very much perhaps use a code generation tool, but what am I trying to accomplish with that? What's my end goal? What am I hoping to get out of it? What could I save from a, process perspective, efficiency perspective, money perspective, all of those things, and then come at it from that angle, right? Because you will likely appreciate where you end up more than if you just thought about it from a solution perspective and tried to, way forward instead of backward from the business problems. And all, that being said, much easier said than done, right? Because this isn't something like any disruptive technology that people have had a long time to assimilate and understand how to go about those things. So, it's a little bit of, I don't want to say fumbling around blind, but they're having to develop processes around thinking about these types of business challenges and how AI could help them solve those, right? They're forming, whatever they call them, AI steering committees or an AI tiger team or this, that, or the other people, which are usually at this point, probably in most companies, just different hats that people are wearing, right? It's a team of, solution architects and maybe an executive or two to represent that side of the business and somebody from, various business units that are thrown into this room together and trying to come up with business use cases that AI may be able to help them with and, having to define those and then bring those forward to the folks that maybe are able to sponsor those projects and vendors that are able to come in and talk to them about how they can help them solve those problems with AI. Like I said, much easier said than done for all those reasons. Nevertheless, important and something that everybody's trying to do to varying degrees of success.
So what are the first workflows to target for like AI automation? I know like ticket generation is easy, right? Or ticket sorting or ticket predictions. What else have you found that are like easy workflows for businesses to just start getting a taste of AI and start understanding how it works?
Yeah, so many areas we could talk about AI in observability, right? Observability being this, kind of larger encompassing umbrella over monitoring that, not only helps you understand what's going on, which is kind of more the monitoring level, but to the why it's happening at the observability level. But there's so many things that AI is capable of doing there. I mean, not only from a machine learning perspective, right? Observability tools and that the customer may have deployed. And we're talking about things like, App Dynamics or Splunk or Datadog or Instana, these types of tools that customer may have in their environment. All of these are capable of incorporating AI to some degree or another, whether it's, more traditional machine learning that can help automate the process of identifying, root causes to help customers get to, faster mean time to resolution, which is an important thing in that area, or even something like automating. Oh, you mentioned ticketing and ServiceNow, right? Well, a lot of these observability tools would tie in with ticketing platforms like ServiceNow to enable, from a single pane of glass to not only elevate what's going on and why it's happening, but automate the remediation of such a thing. Including the creation of the incident in service now, but remediation like you can automate the running of playbooks and those sorts of things are I don't want to say still in their infancy because they're pretty mature on some levels, but I think as customers try to tie together what one particular tool's able to do within its own little window automation wise with AI, then they're already starting to think about, well, how can I plug these things together? How can I use the tools that agentic AI is going to give me? How can I orchestrate those workflows with MCP and kind of plug all those things together? It's a hot topic. I don't think it's an easy one to solve though, and we haven't even hit on all the other things that the customer
Oh,
or
yeah.
somebody looking to implement might have to consider, right?
Yeah.
And I think you touched really well upon this point in the previous answer. It's having a focus on those outcomes. And there's probably strategy that comes with that. You just mentioned several different protocols, tooling. We've got Gen AI, we've got Agentic, MCP. Does that have something to do with the dog? Is that some kind of protocol? Who knows? And I think to your point, focusing on those outcomes and those challenges that you're trying to solve and aligning that with your strategy and maybe just having strategy specifically for AI and then aligning that with the overall strategy is a really good sounds like a really good way to go about that. Brian, I would kick it over to you.
Yeah. So I had an earlier episode. We were getting into agentic AI and we were doing like just the beginnings of it in a earlier episode. And I mentioned just a conversation I had with my wife. I was talking to her about, I asked her, do you use Chat GPT? And she says, no, I have no idea what that is. I said, well, I use it now more for searching. I got tired of the Google search and them bringing all those paid ad results first before you really get into something maybe I really care about. I almost have to page down nowadays, you know. And she said something like, well, that's what you see today, but one day that's probably what you'll get. They'll monetize it again, and you'll start seeing. Because I think Google search and all that began with just giving you your results. They were just happy they can deliver, and now they're paying for delivery. Are you using like ChatGPT, a Perplexity, Claude, or any of those others as your search engine nowadays more just for your,
Yeah.
I don't want to say personal so much, it could be personal, but also your professional research prep,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's for many things, it's become the default starting place for me when I want to ask a question that's more of a, how do I or how would I do this as opposed to, show me where I can find that thing,
Hmm.
right? Which was, is still something if I'm looking for, whatever, a restaurant in this area, I'm still going to go to Google probably to do that. But if it's, something more of a how could I do it? Yeah, my default has become an AI tool. And from a, beyond just a curiosity and where it was probably a year or two ago for most of us tech professionals and starting to use it as something that I can really uh, do to be more productive. And I can give you probably a good aha example from my own, personal slash professional life where I said, "Oh, I get it now. This is not just something that's a flash in the pan. It's a a real tool." So the scenario was this. I had a workshop that I needed to deliver, and I was looking for all sorts of source material that I could use to, kind of turn into a deck that I was going to have in the backdrop while I was delivering this workshop. And I found something that I thought I could use, but it was like a 400-page PDF printout of a slide deck. So it had like the image at the top of the page and it had the speaker notes underneath, and it was 400 pages of that. And I thought, well, this is great, but I need something that I could, make a deck out of, and I couldn't find the source. So I said, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to, either have to cut out every image and then copy the text and make a slide and add repeat for 400 pages. And it's going to be, I mean, I was staring down the barrel of probably 40 hours of completely tedious work. And that's when I had the aha moment. Okay, let's see what you got, ChatGPT.
Hmm.
So I said, this is my scenario. I have this document. I need a script that can extract these images and make a slide out of each one and take the text underneath the image on each page and put it in the speaker notes. And conservatively, I probably, a couple back and forth with prompts and tweaking the ask, but in 5 to 10 minutes, I had a working Python script that I was able to take the source PDF and feed it into the Python script, and brrr, I had my PowerPoint, and I mean, I was so happy I almost cried. I just saved really, like, I mean, it had to have been a whole week's worth of work, and I did it in, 20 minutes. I thought,
Instruction
"Okay,
do that. They'll send you to places maybe that are close to it, that people are selling or things like that. But be able
yeah,
to take your content and kind of spew out. And sometimes it's wrong. And I've had more trouble with ChatGPT doing. I'm a big Perplexity fan. I found it to be a little bit easier for me on a tech side, just preparing things. I took 4 or 5 projects that's coming up in Q1. I just spoke as well to my IT group on the ServiceNow product and where we're going with its roadmap. And I'd bring up ham and Sam, and someone kind of blurted out green eggs and ham kind of thing, just start. So I go back to the hotel and I'm sort of thinking, oh my gosh, Dr. Seuss, that's all I could think about. So I took the 5 or 6 projects and a summary of them, and I said, "Can I do a Dr. Seuss theme with these projects?" And came back with the Lorax for this and Cat in the Hat for this and all these sorts of things. And I thought, it's doable. So now I'm working on how can I gamify this project, because you're asking technicians to do more than they do during the day, and they're already overwhelmed, right?
yeah,
I'm asking them to help me with these asset management builds and just things like that that they normally don't have to do this work. And I thought if I make it fun, maybe some prizes, it might help, with the mood and stuff. But
yeah."
yeah, so that's what I found.
It's a game changer for sure. What about you, Steele? What's your aha moment?
I think for me is being able to crunch. It's the tedious work. It's being able to crunch or manipulate large data sets. And with that capability, I find that it expands your creativity. You try and set realistic goals for yourself, and you might approach a problem looking at that realistic goal and say, well, I could add a column here and maybe categorize some of the stuff, and that'll take me the 40 hours or whatever. But what I've found is that when we start getting into things like agentic AI, I am now able to not only crunch the large data sets, I can do things with that. And so that goal goes from adding a column to then being able to make decisions and run workflows using Agentic to save a ton of time and accomplish a mission that was not before possible by any one group, because now I have this capability to kind of be a wizard with large data sets,
Yeah,
even without having to understand necessarily what the native tooling is behind the scenes or write a bunch of YAML files or Python scripts. Um, it's a process that kind of feeds into itself, and the more you work with it, I found the better it gets, or at least the more I think I understand it. That could just be Skynet playing tricks on me. Who knows?
yeah. No, that's really powerful, right? And I mean, these are just three personal stories, right?
Yeah.
And as useful as they are, you have to, or at least where I'm thinking about it from, where I sit interacting with the customers that I do, is how do we take that kind of personal productivity gain experience and institutionalize that, operationalize that, and what does that mean, right? I mean, because it means a whole lot more than just the three of us, typing into whatever Gen AI tool that we happen to use on a personal basis, right? There's all sorts of things
Mhm.
that a business needs to think about that you and I are kind of isolated from thinking about. From security and governance being probably two that are the most important, right? Making sure that those tools have trustworthy data, good sources of data, auditable data, right? Because I mean, a lot of these industries are regulated industries that, if the regulations haven't caught up already, they're going to very soon. So customers can't just roll something out willy nilly without thinking about security and governance and what their folks are doing with those tools and where that information is going once it comes out the other end of the prompt, right? And then orchestrating those things. You mentioned agentic, right? But thinking about it from a business perspective and putting a control plane across that in the form of MCP we mentioned a little bit ago, and ensuring that you not only have the ability to plug in all those different agentic AI tools so that you can do more, but that you're doing that in a systematic, controlled manner. That's a really important thing.
You definitely need to know your assets, know what's going on inside that area,
Mm.
to watch for any kind of insertion, um, if something going on you're not used. I mean, there's a lot of trust to build human in a loop, to take that human out of the loop. But once you take the human out of the loop, you kind of then trust too much. You kind of let her roll, right? You have a confidence in it, and I think that's where it usually goes bad. You're usually, oh, I'm very scared about what it puts out. Huh? It's done it good, done good. Well, I'm just gonna let it fly. No, no. I think you still have to have some type of monitoring control tower kind of idea, to respect it.
Yeah, very important. Very important.
You run
And
into
I'd
any
say that's
regulators or financial institutions, stuff responding to this type of risk of, you know, have you had to deal with auditing,
Not personally when it comes to AI yet, but it's not very far away. I've worked with healthcare payers and state and local governments that are definitely thinking about it. None of the ones that I've been involved with have stared down the barrel of some audit about where that information came from. But if not now, someday.
and I think that you can make similar arguments to another IT platform or automation. There's got to be some governance for the process, some governance for the technology. I think the kind of mid 2010s, it seems like every week you're getting another letter in the mail about a breach. I
Mm.
ordered ice cream for my dad for his birthday, and I got a letter in the mail that my information was leaked. Or
No.
ordering ice cream. I mean, maybe I can go find that and see what flavor it was that he liked. So I think governance is definitely critical. Access controls are critical. I know that there's works councils in other countries that are concerned about usage with AI and just trying to understand what are the inputs and what are the outputs. And then kind of what decisions are we making on that? Kind of to the analogy of all three of us and your analogy of scale there in terms of operational excellence and just the sheer amount of value that is there to be had from a from an enterprise perspective with AI. Are there any early indications or early metrics that if I'm a business and I'm still on the fence about dipping my toes in AI, what's an experiment I could run to kind of show before and after?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm trying to think about where I've seen some folks start with. I think oftentimes, talked about these kind of AI committees that these companies would throw together to try to come up with use cases. And I think, like many business problems, they pull their lines of business for what particular challenges they have. They develop a set of use cases after those. They prioritize those and maybe look at them from a you know, mm, typical low hanging fruit perspective and which ones of these are going to reap the most benefit for the least amount of work. One of the ones that I've seen probably more than others is HR.
Oh,
And they you think about the types of activities that employees would typically interact with HR personnel for, and I'm sure you all are well familiar with the types of questions you would ask HR. What's the policy on this? How many vacation days do I have left this year? What's the accrual policy? When's my next pay date? All these sorts of things, right? These are all easy pickings for something like AI, right? And not that the human value of HR should be diminished, but it should be elevated, right? Because there's certain amount. And I can't
uh-huh.
imagine that many HR professionals relish having to answer the how many vacation days do I have left 1,000 times a day from employees, right? And these are things that are very easily automatable. I'll just tell you from my own personal perspective inside the company that I worked for now, outside of probably the onboarding period immediately prior to my hire to, you know, 6 or 7 weeks after, I don't think I've interacted with a single human inside of HR. Our system, our AI-driven system for that, capability is so mature, so good that I don't think I've even found the need. I've never once even wished I had somebody human to talk to because all the, zillion questions that I've asked over the course of the last few years have been something that the AI agent was able to help me with. So that's one. I think another one is call centers. If you've got any sort of business where you're fielding calls from your external customers or even internal customers for that matter, you've got systems of record that the call center agents are using to answer customer queries, right? Whether those are account information like in a CRM or policies or documents or things like that that they may need to reference to get that information. And I'm sure you've seen in your own personal life when you're interacting with companies these days, you go to the website and you're, immediately prompted with a, how can I help you? Right. And now your first interaction is an AI bot that's tied into, various systems in the back end where Agentic can, comes in and, you probably don't even realize it, or at least, less techie people probably don't realize it, is those systems are all connected in the back end, right? So if you ask it for, I want to make an appointment with my doctor, right? Well, now the Agentic's tied into the calendaring system for the doctor and can go back and look at that calendar, find a free list of times and dates for you, provide you with a set of choices in the prompt. You click one, it goes back into that system, it schedules the doctor, and maybe it, goes and grabs a form that you're going to need to fill out ahead of time and allows you to submit that, and it goes into some other back end system, right? So these are two use cases that I see pretty regularly from the customer perspective as low-hanging fruit, but by no means the only place you could start.
I mean, just off of that, being able to reducing friction in my everyday life, whether it's my personal life or my work life, that at least to me is phenomenal value. If my everyday is just easier, I I'm sold.
I hear you, but, I will say something here that I think maybe speaks to some shift in the way things were/are versus how they, are becoming. I think we need to consider that there's people are looking at that in different light.
Hmm.
What appears to be frictionless from your perspective and perhaps mine to somebody else is like, I don't know how to navigate this new world, right? Just put me on the phone with somebody because I don't know how to work with this system, right? And that's something that, we shouldn't discount as a factor, especially when you're talking about customer interactions, right?
Hmm.
It's one thing when an employee gets frustrated that their HR chatbot doesn't have the answer, right? They're stuck. They're an employee. They can go someplace else maybe. But, when you're talking about a customer that you're selling stuff to and they get frustrated with your experience and don't want to deal with a chatbot and just want to get on the phone with somebody, they may have a different perspective on frictionless.
Yes, indeed.
Right? It's the
For
same thing. It's
Yeah.
a redo of when we started introducing phone trees instead of live operators to take answers for everything.
Yeah.
How do I navigate this? I hate this zero, and how do I bypass this?
Yeah, having a zero option for some folks is that ease, that reduction of friction when they can pick up and just talk to a human being to get what they need.
You need
Absolutely.
an AI zero option.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are tools though that can. It says they can sense your frustration, sense where we are, in that support, and say, "Hey, do you want me to open up a call for you? Do you want me to send you to a technician?" That's saving out, to be able to jump out of that never ending, you know,
Yeah.
system. So I think there's more and more about that. I know ServiceNow has a little bit of that. I don't know how good it is.
How
And
interesting.
we'll get to see how it is with our customers and our users inside to see, because they get pretty frustrated. So we'll see how many times they can kick them out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, becoming more human will, I think, hopefully reduce that the friction and frustration people
Yeah.
feel.
Well,
Interesting.
any kind of closing remarks? That's a great call today. Anything more do you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just say that this, from a business looking to implement AI, I'd say that it's a hard thing to do, and you really need to have good internal discussions with your your lines of business, maybe with your external customers to understand the particular challenges that you're having before you have a conversation with your whatever particular vendor you're working with to develop a solution. Just harking back to what I was saying earlier, think about it from the business perspective first and what value you derive. And also, I'll say that I'll just reiterate that I think it's touching everything. So when you're thinking about data and or automation or even integration or your DevOps pipeline that you've got to keep your developers happy. All of those things have an AI component, and you don't have to look very far for benefits that those tools will give you.
Yeah, I think we even talked about in an earlier episode about like the difference of Gen AI and Agentic AI and some of the things of the cost. And we probably haven't really seen the monetization of AI yet. I think everybody wants us to get that taste and get hooked on it, that drug
Mm,
in a sense. And then the bills start wrapping up because eventually someone's got to pay the piper for all this compute power, and all the learning and scientific
yeah.
algorithms that are going into this. So I think that's another thing just to keep in mind is eventually you may have some cost in this. For every like response, it's going to cost you something. And I think you should
Oh
use
yeah.
AI or different types of AI where it is useful to gain, footage or gain yardage in what you're trying to solve and
Yeah.
and bridge in a sense. So
Yeah. For sure. And one of the things that has me thinking about is we talked about regulated industries. There are many companies that have policies that prevent them from putting certain types of data
hmm
outside their environment, right? And so, they are the ones that are looking at, you know, I don't want to say bringing AI in house completely, right? Because all these companies have hybrid architectures, and whether or not they running mainframe or distributed on premise, they've probably got some cloud premise doing something right out there. But those ones that are considering bringing AI in house, at least to some degree, yeah, big considerations around what that's going to cost them. And one of the things to think about there is using the right model for the right job, right? It isn't just let me grab some, massive LLM that I'm gonna, point my employees to ask questions about this, that, or the other thing, right? Tailor-made smaller language models or utilizing something like RAG, retrieval augmented generation, to pull in your own data sources and supplement whatever particular language model you might have to make it more useful to answer, whatever. You've got product documentation, right? And you want your call center agents to be able to ask questions of AI that are grounded in your own information, right? Your own product documentation or your own policy documents or what have you, right? Utilizing something like that with a, more of a fit for purpose language model and a RAG method to, augment your bringing your own information. That's really powerful stuff that companies are also thinking about these days.
yep, steel
And
closer.
that's yeah, I would say, and that's information that only the company has. You're not going to find that on a pre-trained model.
Nope.
So yeah, excellent point there. I think for me, I'm just excited to see where the space goes. I hope there's redundancy in all the ways. So hopefully, if a certain data center on the east side of somewhere goes down, we're still able to use AI and get value out of that.
God knows they're building enough data centers, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, today we have reg. Tomorrow maybe we'll have tau, and we'll be able to do more things with it.
there you go. I look forward to the days of towel.
Take us
All
out,
right, thank
Brian.
you, gentlemen. Uh, we're going to close this up. And if anybody has anything they want to add to it, please feel free to get on social media and bring us your comments. Thank you again, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.